Alright, hello and welcome to a little video I wanted to make a Knight add-on tier list. Now, I do want to state that this is before the July 16th Knight rework, the patch that introduced Lara Croft as well, and the new Rift and all that good stuff. They did a major rework for the Knight, which changed basically all of his add-ons. There's a couple that aren't changed, but pretty much all of them have been changed. Two of them were completely changed into different add-ons entirely. I'm not sure why they did that, but regardless, a lot of people might ask, why are you doing a tier list if it's before the patch? And obviously the patch is out at the point of me uploading this video. What's the point of this video slash tier list? And you could argue that there isn't really a point at all, to be honest, but it's my video and I don't really need a point to do it. I kind of just want to, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to make, at least for me personally. And I thought as a bonus, it might be cool for people to be able to look back on what the add-ons were like before the rework and see kind of like what his add-on choices were like before. See if they improved it, see if they nerfed a lot of stuff, see if they buffed a lot of stuff, see if he got more variety and more options, see if some stuff was less mandatory, all that kind of good stuff. So I thought still kind of worth doing, and I also kind of just wanted to for fun. So that is the plan. We're going to be doing a tier list ranking all of his add-ons in terms of best to worst, what I think are the best add-ons, what I think are the worst add-ons, and kind of giving you a rundown on each individual one. I do think that add-on tier lists in DBD are actually quite interesting because each killer has a lot of variety. There's 20 different add-ons for every killer, which is a lot, honestly. And you would be surprised that just because some of them are higher tier, like purple and iridescent, they aren't actually always the better add-ons, and each killer has different types of add-ons and different routes that they can go down in terms of their add-on choices, which makes tier lists for add-ons actually quite interesting and quite fun to make, I feel like. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to give a rundown because I have been playing a whole bunch of Knight before his rework happens, because I do enjoy the state that he's in right now, at least quite a decent amount. And I do think that the rework's kind of going to gut him a little bit, but that's just my personal opinion. So generally in this video, I'm not going to be talking about the rework or anything that the rework is doing. I'm going to be talking about the current state of Knight, the current state of his add-ons, and we're kind of going to be ignoring the rework, just keep that in mind going forward. I also will not really be talking about the Knight's power or how he works or how you should play him really in this video, because that's not really what the point of this video is. But if I do need to explain why I think some add-ons are better than others, I will obviously impart that knowledge and of why my choices are what they are, and explain my thinking process if I need to. And generally, I do think I have a pretty good idea on how to play the Knight. I have about 2,000 hours in DBD, I'm decently high MMR, and I've played a good chunk of the Knight since he released, honestly. And, I mean, also, judging by the achievements, I'm actually bare minimum in the top 1% of Knight players, hilariously. Which is probably just because there's so many killers in the game, and the DBD player base is quite large at this point. And obviously killer is less played than survivor, so you add all these factors together and it makes a lot of sense that only 1% of people have actually put even a small amount of playtime into the Knight, but it's just kind of a hilarious fact that I thought I'd mention. And finally, I will be trying to make this tier list as objective as I possibly can, based on how strong and useful the add-ons actually are. But do keep in mind that tier lists are naturally going to be a bit biased based on your playstyle, based on subjective experiences, based on MMR, all that jazz. And there's not really too much you can do about that except try and fight that bias as much as you can and try and be as objective as possible, which is what I will be doing. But with all that out of the way, we should be good to go, should be able to crack into the tier list. Another thing I'm going to add, actually, is that I will be probably rearranging the tier list towards the end, because as you go through tier lists, it's a bit easier to rank some things against each other once they're all placed on the board. So if things move around a little bit, don't be alarmed. I'll explain it when it happens, that kind of stuff. But just keep in mind that no placements are really final until the end of the video. I also might add extra layers to the tier list if I feel like it's needed at any point, but I will also explain that as we go. Let's start off with the common add-ons first. The brown add-ons. What is the first add-on we're going to be talking about here? Is going to be the Pillaged Mead. So what this does is it reduces the break and damage action duration of guards by 15%. So it speeds up break animations by 15% on your guards. Now, to start off, I don't think this add-on is that good. And the reason for that is because if you're breaking things with the assassin or with the jailer, they take so long to break anything that 15% is a decent chunk of time, but it's not enough to make a difference, right? That's the thing. When it comes to things in DBD, it's about breaking thresholds where it actually makes a difference. 15% faster on an assassin or a jailer isn't gonna matter. They're still gonna reach a pallet. They're still gonna reach another loop, even if you break a pallet with these guards. It can speed up generator kicks, but honestly, it's not really needed. That's going to be such a minor amount of time, and usually when you are kicking generators with your guards, it's not a time sensitive thing, so I don't really think it's needed for the assassin or the jailer. Now we start talking about the Carnifex, and now we're a little bit more of an interesting conversation, but I still do think that this isn't really that useful, because generally the Carnifex breaks pallets fast enough that they won't get to another loop or another pallet. Unless it's a very loop pallet dense map, usually the Carnifex will break it fast enough that the 15% won't matter. And also 15% on the Carnifex is less useful than 15% on the assassin or the jailer, so you're not really getting that much of a benefit out of it. And so honestly, I'm going to put the Pillage Mead in like C tier. There's a little bit of usefulness in it, you'll get a little bit of value, but overall I wouldn't really use this add-on. It's not great, it isn't really going to give you great impact, but there is some value to it. All right, so next add-on being the Tabard, bit of a tongue twister, that one, increases the patrol duration of guards by 6 seconds. Now, this is actually kind of bad. So obviously this increases the amount of time that your guards walk a path that you've set for them. But the thing is that while a guard is walking a path, it does not let you use your power. So you kind of put yourself into plus 6 seconds of cooldown, because if you miss with your power as the knight, then it is stuck on cooldown and you can't use your power, you can't place another guard, you got to wait for that patrol time to go away. So this can actually be kind of a nerf for you. It's not always a good thing. A lot of the times if you miss with your power as the knight, you are severely punished because you're not able to use your power for such a long time after. So I really would say this is a pretty bad add-on. Now you can do some funky basement camping stuff on very specific maps with this add-on and the jailer. It is a little bit toxic in its way because you are hardcore basement camping essentially, but there is some strategies to be doing with that, but it is a little gimmicky. It only works on very specific maps, so you need a map offering. I do find the strategy kind of fun occasionally. So I do kind of want to put it in C just because of that strategy, but realistically, it's the only time you're ever going to use this add-on, so it kind of safely pretty bad. Next add-on that we got is the Gritty Lump. It increases the movement speed of guards during their patrol phase by 9%, so they'll walk a bit faster while they're on that path that they've been set. I honestly have no reason why you'd use this. Like, guards always spawn at the end of the path, and so that means that if you're trying to place it on the survivor, which you're obviously going to be doing, then it actually just speeds up how far away they walk away from the survivor and walk away from wherever the survivor is at and back to wherever you started the path, which is obviously a bad thing. They will walk back and forth potentially an extra time depending on the path length and which guard you placed, because sometimes they'll run out before they do multiple back and forths. So this could mean that they walk back and forth a couple times, but I really don't see much reason to use this. You rarely put guards on patrol specifically to have them patrol. It's more to catch people out or to corral them, and obviously usually you're corralling them as you place them, so if it walks away from where you placed it immediately faster, 9% faster, it's actually kind of a hinder. So again, putting it in D tier along with the Tabard because it kind of hinders you. It's kind of a bad add-on. And next, lastly, for the common add-ons is the Map of the Realm. This increases the vision range of a guard during the patrol phase by 4 meters. So this increases their circle on which it can spot people, all of your guards, by 4 meters. Now, 4 meters doesn't sound like a lot, right? But it is a 4 meter in a circle, right? In a radius, which means that 4 meters is a lot because it's 4 meters on all sides, which makes the circle massively bigger. And this add-on is actually so important. I cannot stress how important this is. I played a fuckload of Knight, and every time I took this add-on off, I would see my guards not hitting people, just barely, right on the edge. And then when I put the add-on back on, it would always hit people. I would play the same in both scenarios, right? It's not like my level of play changed from one match to the next without the add-on. It strictly was the map was just making a difference. That 4 meters was coming in so clutch. The jailer's radius becomes insanely large, which is incredibly helpful. And the Carnifex and the Assassins stop having these tiny circles and they start having sizable circles, which lets you use them on loops more effectively. This is an S tier add-on in my opinion. I hate playing without this add-on. It really is something that I feel like the Knight needs. And there's a couple other add-ons that I feel like I will give examples of that I feel like you really need as the Knight to make his power feel fluid. And this is the #1 in my opinion. I think this is his best add-on. And it's crazy that it's a common add-on, but I genuinely think that this is his best add-on. I hate playing without it. It is so unfun. You can play without it, but every time I did, I felt like my power felt clunky. It felt unfluid. It felt like clunky and just unintuitive. It was so frustrating and it felt punishing because when you miss with the Knight, you really get punished. And so this helps you not miss. And the survivors, they can see your orb. So having that extra meters really helps because it makes it harder for them to dodge away. And it makes it harder for them to shift W. Like if you place it at a loop in a standstill, which is the biggest counter tonight, is that shift W. So obviously it counters his counter and it makes him a little bit more forgiving and it makes it a lot harder for you to miss with him, which means that you're not going to get punished as much by your ability being on large cooldowns, which is kind of Knight's biggest weakness. But moving on from that, we're going into the uncommon add-ons, the yellow add-ons. We are going to start with Call to Arms, which increases the maximum length of patrol path by 10 meters and increases the movement speed while drawing the patrol path by 2.2 ms. Now, so this increases the amount of movement speed while you're in ghost form placing your guard, and it means that you can go further with your guard because the guard is not based on a timer. It's not based on what shape you make the path in. It's based on strictly distance. So this just increases the amount of distance that you can draw the path. This is actually quite a good add-on, in my opinion. This makes it feel a lot faster, a lot more fluid to place your paths, and you will see good Knights use this quite effectively. They're able to place their paths very quickly. They're able to place them in crazy spots, hit people from super far away, cross map, snipe people with the guards, and get hunts on people that you wouldn't be able to without this add-on. This add-on lets you play the Knight more fluidly. It lets you do things you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. It's actually a really good add-on, and I would say it's one of the 3 add-ons in my opinion that make his power feel more fluid and fill in gaps that feel a bit clunky. Although I do think that this is the lesser of the 3, but I do think it's still up there, and that's why I would put this in A tier personally. Great add-on to use, but definitely some better options in my opinion. All right, moving on to the next one, we have got dried horse meat. Now, this extends the duration of a hunt by 4 seconds. So this means that your guards chase people for an extra 4 seconds. This is another S tier add-on in my opinion. That extra hunt duration, while 4 seconds doesn't sound like a lot, and it's not a crazy amount. 4 seconds is a lot of the time a difference between hitting a survivor that made a mistake with the hunt and not hitting them. And sometimes it's the difference of getting double hits, and you can insta-down as the Knight by your guard hitting them and then you hitting them right away after. This is actually, without this add-on, I rarely saw the guards get hits. With this add-on, I sometimes saw the guards get hits, and I sometimes got double hits. I really think that this is another add-on that the Knight needs to feel fluid, to feel competent, for his power to feel not clunky and not counterintuitive. It's not much, the 4 seconds, and I do think it's worse and less important than Map of the Realm, but I do think this is another S tier, very important best in slot add-on in terms of making his power feel more fluid and better. I do think that this combo right here, Map of the Realm plus dried horse meat, is probably the best add-ons he has in terms of a very catch-all play style and a very just best in slot build for the Knight to make him as fluid and as intuitive as possible. But you can definitely mix it up and throw in a couple other add-ons that we will be talking about throughout. So next, we've got 3 add-ons, which I'm kind of going to be talking about all at once because they all do a similar type of thing. We have got the Battle Axe Head, the Cold Steel Manacles, and the Treated Blade. You can probably figure out which ones are which. All 3 of these add-ons do the same thing, but for each different guard. So the Cold Steel Manacles makes the Jailer spawn twice in a row. The Battle Axe Head makes the Carnifex spawn twice in a row. And the Treated Blade makes the Assassin spawn twice in a row. Now, this leads to a little bit of combo potential because later on there is 3 purple add-ons which all interact with the different guards. So each guard has their own specific purple, just like they each have their own specific yellow add-on here. So there is a little bit of combo potential there, and I will be talking about that once we get to the purples, but I will mention it a little bit here because it does matter to where I place these add-ons. To start off with the Jailer, this one is kind of bad. The Jailer is not a great guard in his own right. His banner spawns quite quickly, which means that people can grab it quite quickly and counter it that way. He also rarely gets hits. He's probably the one who gets hits the least because he doesn't hunt for the longest and he does not have the most movement speed. So he's actually pretty unlikely to get a hit on his own right, and he's also the one that stays on patrol the longest, which means if you miss with him, your power is locked out for the longest amount of time. Now, all these things kind of added together, he kind of sucks, but he does have the longest detection radius, which does help a little bit. But I really don't think that having him twice in a row is that beneficial. I think it's kind of a hindrance sometimes. The only time that I think it's useful is camping the basement, like with the Tattered Tabard that I talked about earlier. I do think that with one of his purples, this add-on goes up slightly, at least you can use him to camp generators, and you can use him with his purple add-on, and you can use it to camp the basement. So I feel like there's a little bit of usability here, but honestly not much. I would probably say it's pretty bad, but we'll put it in the C tier. The next one is the Treated Blade, and honestly, I'd say this one is D tier. Maybe top of D tier because having the Assassin twice, he is a little bit better at hunting than the Jailer, but he's not that great, and his add-on doesn't actually combo with having him twice in the row as you'd expect. So I really don't think that there's any reason to use this add-on at all, to be honest. It just doesn't really do that much. Having the Assassin twice in a row isn't really that useful. He doesn't really have that much going for him. He is the fastest, which means he's the most likely to get hits, and he does do deep wound when he does hit people, but honestly, it really doesn't happen very often. So it's not like you want the Assassin twice. You're missing out on the other 2, which kind of sucks, and it just doesn't really have that many benefits, and it's a whole add-on slot, and Knight is really starved for add-on slots. As you can see, we already think some pretty crucial add-ons are S tier and A tier, some things that I really feel like he needs from his power to be competent. So it does kind of hurt to drop an add-on slot for something that isn't that impactful, and that's probably a trend you'll see as we get through the rest of these add-ons. Finally, the Carnifex Battle Axe Head. This one is slightly better, and I would say maybe it is B tier, because having the Carnifex twice is not that bad. The Carnifex is one of the strongest guards because while he can chase, and he does chase for the longest amount of time, which means it's quite easy for you to get hits while he's chasing a survivor because it's easy to corral them. Even if they run to another loop, the Carnifex will chase them to that loop as well, especially with dried horse meat. But you are dropping an add-on slot for this add-on, so maybe not B tier, but we'll put it there for now because having him spawn multiple times really helps because you can chew through those pallets, especially on pallet-heavy maps. So I do think there is some merit to this add-on. And it does combo with his purple add-on, but his purple add-on, I mean, we'll get to that when we get there, but so that's not a big deal, trust me. But Carnifex Battle Axe Head, it is a little bit better. It's definitely better than the other 2. So we'll put it in B tier for now, but I might move that one down for sure. Some of these might need to be moved down, honestly, but we'll get there when we get there. Next, we're going to be moving into the green add-ons, which we're going to start with the Grim Iron Mask. This one, survivors detected by a guard during the patrol phase suffer from the blindness status effect for 60 seconds. So what this means is that while a guard is chasing them, they suffer from blindness. Or well, when the guard first starts chasing them, they'll suffer from blindness starting from then for 60 seconds. And you might think, okay, blindness, okay, well, what can that do? Well, if they're being chased by a guard, chances are they're being chased by you. based on how you play Knight. And so, windows of opportunity, that's where your mind first goes, right? And this is true, and Windows is a very widely used perk and kind of relied on by some survivors. So disabling their windows can be pretty nice. It could be kind of useful, so there is some merit to that. But that's about it. And like I said, Knight is very add-on starved, so dropping an add-on just to disable people's windows if they have it, yeah, I wouldn't rate that very highly. Now, would I? There is another element that could be talked about a little bit, which is the fact that the banner has an aura, the banner that the guard drops. But sadly, I tested it, and this add-on does not affect that aura, because why would it, right? That would be silly. I do think maybe that would be a bit strong, so I do get why it doesn't, but it's a little bit sad that it, disables auras, but it doesn't disable, the one aura you'd actually care about, and make you want to use this add-on. So I'd honestly say this is pretty fucking bad. I don't really see a reason to use this. Maybe better than the Assassin's Blade, because I don't really see a reason to use that either. Honestly, the Tabard with camping kind of makes me want to put that up here, just because the Tabard at least has some use cases, and none of these things do, in my opinion. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, put that down here, maybe, below the Assassin's Blade. I think the Assassin's Blade is worse, honestly. All of these are really bad. Tabard at least has some usability, I guess, so we'll put it up there. But moving on, next we've got the Ironworker's Tongs. This causes a survivor to suffer from the Oblivious status effect for 20 seconds if a guard fails to damage them during a hunt. So, I don't know, actually, if this works if the Knight hits the survivor. I'm going to say it doesn't based on the other add-ons, but I actually don't know if I tested this. I don't think I did. So possibly you could injure a survivor and then they'd be oblivious for 20 seconds, and maybe you can sneak up on them if it's a map with a lot of line of sight blocking. That's a bit of a waste for an add-on, I feel like. And let's say it doesn't work with the Knight hitting them, which I don't think it probably will, because based on how the other add-ons work. This is one add-on that I'm not actually 100% sure on, which is a bit of a shame. I do not know if this works that way. Let's say it doesn't, and if it doesn't, then chances are this add-on is trash, because it means that the survivor has to escape, run away from the hunt and escape, either get the banner or something, and then they're oblivious for 20 seconds, which 20 seconds is not a lot of time. And the thing is that you'll be wasting so much time trying to set this up, sending a guard after them, then letting the guard run away, and then using the Oblivious to sneak up on them specifically. And while you're doing this, all other 3 survivors are doing things on the map and applying pressure, and you're doing about nothing for 1 M1 hit. Yeah, that's just not going to fly. In the other world where it does work if the Knight gets a hit, then I guess in a chase you hit the survivor and you apply Oblivious, and then you can use that next 20 seconds to maybe catch them off guard at a loop. There's like a little bit of play there, but your red stain is still up because it's Oblivious, not undetectable. So I'd say this is pretty bad. I would say this is pretty bad, but there's a couple usabilities for it. I wouldn't say it's quite D tier like the mask. There is maybe a little bit of use cases and a little bit of fun with it, so we'll put it above the camping but below the Iron Mead. I think that's not the Iron Mead, the Pillaged Mead, sorry. I think that's fair. Alright, moving on to the Chain Mail Fragment. This one's actually an interesting one. So, guards inflict the hemorrhage status effect when they damage the survivor. Pretty self-explanatory, and this is actually quite interesting, and I do think there's a little bit of usability here, and the reason for that is that applying hemorrhage, it's a permanent hemorrhage effect, which is actually kind of hard to acquire now because of the way that they changed Mangled and Hemorrhage and Sloppy Butcher. So, getting a permanent hemorrhage effect means that you can send a guard to the hook after they get unhooked if you know that a guard injured that survivor that was on the hook, and you can disrupt a heal, which would waste a lot of time. Sadly, they won't have Mangled as well, but it will disrupt a lot of time from the survivors, and you can stop them from healing and waste a whole bunch of their time, which is quite useful. But I tried this in practice, and a lot of the time, matches are just too hectic to really do this. You had to stay next to the hook a whole bunch, and waste a whole bunch of pressure, waste a whole bunch of time, and play inefficiently just to get a little bit of efficiency out of your add-on, whereas you'd be better off just running a better add-on that is useful while being efficient, if that makes sense. Because you have to be inefficient to make this add-on efficient, which doesn't really work out, obviously. It doesn't work out as a net positive. So I wasn't really the biggest fan of this, but I do feel like there's a little bit of usability here. I wouldn't really call it B tier though. I'm probably gonna stick it in C tier. It's not great, and it's not great. I wouldn't recommend this, but I would say there's a little bit of usability there, and it's like a little bit of a different change of pace if you want to use it as the knight. So worth considering, I guess. Next, we have got the Town Watch's Torch. Grants the undetectable status effect for 25 seconds after the second time a guard fails to damage the survivor during a hunt. This is fucking annoying. This add-on does not... It's wasting an add-on slot in a killer that is add-on slot starved and just can barely afford to use any inefficient add-ons for something that, like, barely works and is kind of just a huge pain in the ass. I honestly would rather use the Grim Iron Mask, like legitimately. I just don't. This add-on is so inconsistent and you can't really make it happen, and then you get undetectable status effect for 25 seconds where you don't even know if you're going to be able to use it. Like, I've gone whole games and gotten this effect twice out of the whole game. And then those 2 times, I was trying to get value out of it, and I just basically fucked myself because I wasn't actually playing optimally. I was playing in a way where I was trying to use the undetectable, but it gives it at a random fucking time where you're not ready to use it or not. So this add-on's a pain in the ass. I don't recommend it. I'm actually going to put it below the... I'm going to put it... I just don't... I mean, it's better than the Gritty Lump, I guess. There's like some usability. I guess it's better than that, to be honest. But it's just... I really feel like the Grim Iron Mask might want to go up a tier because this is not feeling great. Alright, so we've added an extra tier here because I want to move some stuff around. What we're going to do is we are going to move all of this stuff into the E tier, or the D tier, and move this stuff down to the E tier. I think that's fair because these have some usability. They're not too bad, and these are the ones that I think are really bad, not really worth using ever. And these are like not great, but there's some usability for them, that kind of thing. So hopefully you can understand my reasoning there and why I feel like we kind of need another tier, just to kind of space out stuff and kind of differentiate a little bit more between all these things. Next, we have got the Broken Hilt. Survivors damaged by a guard suffer from the Mangled status effect for 70 seconds. This is just whatever. Like, this just really doesn't do anything. Like guards damage survivors so rarely that a Mangled status effect every, like, for 70 seconds after they get hit, chances are you'll hit a couple hits. Survivors will sometimes go down to the guard if you've got them in a corner and they can't really escape, so they're either going to get hit by you or the guard. They'll just get hit by the guard, which will apply Mangled, but it's for 70 seconds. Chances are you carry them, you put them on a hook, they sit there for 30 seconds, and their status effect's just going to run out. They're just going to run away, go heal somewhere else, and the effect will wear off, right? Maybe it lasts, but it's 25% slower. It's like a minuscule amount of time added to the heal. It's really not a big deal. I really don't think this add-on is that great, but I honestly probably would put it above the Torch. But I wouldn't really use this add-on. I mean, I also don't know if I'd use the Mask. And maybe this goes here. A little bit worse than the Mask, but I mean, is it better than the Mask? Blindness can disrupt people's aura reading and maybe disrupt windows quite often. I don't know, man. That's a rough one. Not a great add-on in my opinion, but I mean, maybe there's a little something there. I don't know. We're gonna leave it in the D tier. I don't think it's great, but we'll leave it there. All right, moving on finally to the purples. We've only got a couple add-ons left here. We're most of the way through, starting with the Blacksmith Hammer. This is an interesting add-on. So, causes survivors to suffer from the exhausted status effect and a 3% hindered status effect for 15 seconds if they escape a hunt by any other means than grabbing the standard. So, this is really poorly worded. When it says escape a hunt by any other means other than grabbing the standard, it literally means just running away. I mean, maybe it'll work if it hits a survivor instead of them, but if you damage a survivor, then that does not count as them escaping the hunt. It would be amazing if it did, but it doesn't. They have to run out the timer, or maybe a guard hits another survivor, and that will give them the 3% hindered and the exhausted. The exhausted is kind of nice because it does mean that their exhaustion perk will stay on cooldown, because obviously they're going to stay running away from you, which means that their exhaustion won't recover. The 3% hindered it's a tiny slow. You barely notice it. It's there, though. I would say that this is probably better than the Carnifex, but it's not that great. It's kind of a contingency if you don't get the hit with the guard, but the contingency is so weak that it's not really worth an add-on. It's like, okay, if I don't hit you and you run out the timer, then you're 3% slower, which lets me hopefully get another hit on you, right? Or get another chance to get a hit. But that's not the reality. The 3% hindered and the exhausted is nice, but it's really not enough. So it's a contingency that really isn't that effective, which means that it's not that great. I would say it's B tier because it's a little like it's something, and you will see the effect of it, and sometimes the contingency can fall into place. But I do feel like there is just better options for making your guard not fail to give you the hit, right? Either you get the hit or the guard gets the hit with the extra hunt duration or the extra detection range, these kind of things. I just don't feel like it's really worth dropping any of these 3 add-ons for the blacksmith hammer. So I just wouldn't really recommend it. But it is probably better than most of his other add-ons. Honestly, Knight has really shit add-ons, as you are starting to see, because I'm arguing how bad these add-ons are, and then I'm still putting them in B and C tier, right? So you can kind of see how this is going. Knight does not have great options. Next, we are moving into the 3 purples that are all guard specific. So these are all of the guard's individual add-ons that combo with each guard specifically, and we'll start off with the flint and steel. Summoning the Carnifex has the following effect. The auras of all survivors within 24 meters of unbroken pallets are revealed to you for 5 seconds. This add-on's shit. I'm just going to be honest, it's shit. It is really weak. The only time that you can really use this is on the game map. You have them drop a pallet near the middle of the map, and then you can use the Carnifex for some aura reading and kind of use it like a little makeshift barbecue, right? Which is kind of useful, but the Knight's add-ons are so important, as I've been talking about. He's so add-on slot starved that dropping an add-on just for like a little bit of aura reading on a terrible map that you have to play to even get any value out of it. I mean, maybe you can do like Midwich or RPD and have that be a thing, but you have to leave that pallet down, which even if it's a weak pallet, it's still a pallet down on the map, you know what I mean? And they can still run to it to delay you a little bit of time. And with the Knight, you can clear pallets really easily. That's one of the benefits of the Knight, is that he can break things without actually having to waste the time to break them a lot of the time. So you can clear the map of all these downed pallets that usually on other killers you might not break, which would obviously lose you that bit of time if survivors do choose to go there. But with this add-on, you want to like leave the pallets up, and it only works on specific maps. And then it's also only 24 meters, which even on the game doesn't cover the whole map. And even though it reveals their aura, it doesn't really do that much, and you're so add-on slot starved. Yeah, this one's bad. I'm gonna put it down here in E. I mean, there's a little bit of usability, but like I really don't think it's worth sending yourself to a bad map. I mean, maybe D tier. Like, I don't know, man. It's a bit rough. I actually found that I got more value out of doing the basement camping strat with these 2 add-ons than I ever got value out of this add-on. But maybe we'll put it in D tier just because there is a little bit of usability there. Yeah, we'll probably put it in D just because there's a little bit of usability. We'll roll with that. I think that's fair. Oh, adding on to the Carnifex combo add-on here, having him spawn twice is actually not a benefit for this add-on, but having him spawn twice is good in its own right. So that makes this add-on, again, not that great because it doesn't really combo well with spawning him twice, because you don't need double aura reading. You kind of just need it once to go find somebody, and then you're fine, right? So having him spawn twice is not useful, so this is not really a good combo. Wouldn't recommend it, and that's why this add-on is shit. Extra shit. So just to put that out there. Next one, we have got the Healing Poultice. So this is the Assassin combo add-on. Summoning Assassin has the following effect. All survivors within 24 meters of his spawn position scream and reveal their current location to you for 5 seconds. This is really good, actually. This is a really nice add-on because it is actually really nice. It's like the Carnifex combo add-on, the Flint and Steel, but not shit. This one is actually quite nice because it lets all the survivors scream. You don't have to have a pallet down, and it reveals their location. and you can use it like a little aura reading, little barbecue, and find people using it. It's really nice, and it does not combo well with spawning the assassin twice, which is why the assassin twice add-on is so low, because having him spawn twice is not really that useful. Same for the Carnifex add-on. You don't really need to find people twice in a row. You kind of just need to find them once, go and find them, chase them, down them, and then you can use the assassin again, which chances are it'll be close to off cooldown. You can maybe spawn the jailer and then hit him and then spawn the assassin and get the kind of barbecue effect and find another survivor. This add-on is quite good, actually, and I would recommend using it. It's quite fun to use, and it's a decent add-on. Next and final combo add-on, we've got the lightweight greaves for the jailer. So this is after summoning the jailer, the knight's movement speed increases by 10% for 6 seconds. 10% for 6 seconds sounds nice. Immediately you're like, whoa, that's some nice movement speed. Now we're talking. Sadly, I would say that this is only B tier because the 10% movement speed is all right. It doesn't come into effect as much as you'd hope. The movement speed that the knight already places on himself plus the 10% sounds great in theory, but in practice, you really just don't get that much value out of it. I found that when I used this, it didn't really let me catch up to survivors that much because of the shift W that they already did when you use your power, because that's just the way they counter the knight. So you just ended up chasing after them, and the movement speed was usually gone by the time you actually got to a loop to where you want to use it, but it did let you catch up a little bit faster. It kind of works out like the blacksmith hammer, where it's just like a contingency that is kind of too weak to really do anything, so it doesn't really make up for the add-on slot that it's costing you, in which the knight is so add-on slot starved because his power feels so weak by itself. I wouldn't really recommend this one, but it is somewhat fun to use. You can use it with the double jailer and use it in chase. There is a little bit of usability there, but I wouldn't really recommend it. It's all right. It's not a great combo, but it does a little bit, and you'll have some fun with how fast you are for those 6 seconds. So it's all right, I would say, but not great. Finally, moving on to the last two add-ons, the iridescence. Let's start off with the knight's contract because it is the stinker of the two. This is the exposed add-on for the knight, which every killer kind of got an exposed add-on back in the day, and now they've been kind of walking away from that as time has gone on with reworks, and with new killers they're kind of stopping to add those exposed add-ons. It used to be that every killer got one iridescent exposed add-on. Now they've kind of walked away from that a little bit. But for the knight, it is summoning a guard every 4th time has the following effect. Causes all survivors within 12 meters of his spawn location to suffer from the exposed status effect for 8 seconds. So every 4th guard you summon applies exposed in a 12-meter radius for 8 seconds. Now, that sounds like quite a big radius, and 8 seconds doesn't sound like a long time, but it sounds like there's a little bit of usability there. But the times I've used it, man, it felt so underwhelming. It felt so hard to make value out of this. The only time that I felt like I could legitimately use this is like Hubris, where somebody drops a pallet and I break it with Carnifex, and then I chase after them and get the exposed down. That was basically it, right? I'm just comparing it to Hubris in terms of the drop a pallet, apply exposed, right? Instead, it's drop Carnifex, apply exposed, break the pallet with Carnifex, and then go and get the hit with the exposed. 8 seconds is not a long time, but you can get the hit. But I would say Carnifex is basically the only one, because if you're spawning Jailer or Assassin and they're at like a loop, then chances are they just run the loop or get hit by the guard and then run away. And if they're already injured, then you don't need the exposed. Basically, the only way to use this is with Carnifex. And the problem is that it's summoning a guard every 4th time, which means that it only procs on Carnifex once, and then you have to proc it on 2 other guards, and then you can proc it on Carnifex again. So you get to use this on Carnifex like twice, maybe 3 times a match at most, because you only cycle your guards so many times unless you're spawning them and then hitting them all the time, which, I mean, you could do when you pick up a survivor, which saves you a little bit of time, because it's easier to place them, pick up a survivor, and then hit them while you're carrying. That is faster to like switch guards, but it really is still slow and such a waste of time when you could just use a better add-on. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend this. And you might be like me and you might think in your head, oh, but wait, I can spawn the card effects twice, and that will, you know, give me extra options. But no, it doesn't. Because if you add the Carnifex, it spawns on the Jailer every time. And if you add the Jailer, it spawns on the Jailer every time. And if you add on the Assassin, it spawns on the Jailer every time. Because of the way that it works with summoning a guard every 4th time, adding another one to the rotation just makes it so that it always lands on the Jailer. Because it doesn't rotate between each guard, it just always lands on the Jailer because he's the 4th option, always. No matter who you add, he's always the 4th option. Which means that no matter, you either get Carnifex every 3 rotations, or you get the Jailer every rotation. Those are your options. And the Jailer is awful with this add-on, and the Carnifex is the only usable option, but you only get the Carnifex every 3 times. So this add-on is trash. It's really bad. It's hilarious to me how bad this is as an iridescent. It's really quite shit. So yeah, would not recommend. I would not suggest using this. It's pretty bad. It can be satisfying when you get that Carnifex, break the pallet into the down, but it's just not worth, I feel like. Finally, we're going to talk about the last add-on here, the Iridescent Company Banner. This is quite interesting as an iridescent, actually. I quite like this add-on. So it's got multiple effects. It's got 3 effects, actually. Causes all windows on the patrol path to be blocked to all survivors for 15 seconds after summoning a guard. Causes all windows vaulted by the hunted survivor to be blocked to all other survivors for the duration of the hunt. And causes the exit gates to be blocked to the hunted survivor for the duration of the hunt. So let's talk about the window stuff first, because I think that one's going to be a little bit harder to explain and a bit harder to pin down. So basically it means that when you go through a vault while you're in ghost form, it will block the window for 15 seconds. And it also means that if a guard is hunting a survivor and they vault a window, no other survivors will be able to vault that window until the hunt is over, by whatever means the hunt ends. Now, the second part, blocking this window for all other survivors, I've never seen that come into play. Like, it could if, you know, there's a whole bunch of survivors in one location, they all need to get out, maybe in the basement, for example, like if they're in Killer Shack or they're in one of the buildings out of the basement, they all come out of the basement, they're all trying to vault the same window to get out of there, then yeah, maybe it could come into play and, you know, stop a couple of them from escaping, get you a free hit or something, and you can kind of force that situation, maybe, but like not really. Yeah, so there's a little bit of interesting stuff there, but it never really comes into play in my opinion. The other part where the windows on the patrol path get blocked, I actually don't think this is useful. It sounds useful, but when I tried to do it, I felt like I was just wasting my own time. I felt like I was just being inefficient with my power to try and get those window blocks, because I felt like, oh, you know, I'm blocking the window like Bamboozle, this is so useful. But the reality is the survivor just shift W'd farther away, and if I hadn't blocked the window, I could have just used the guard to corral the survivor and hit them even if they went through the window like you usually do with Knight. So this part I actually didn't feel was that useful. I thought this part would be so much more useful and so much more interesting than it was, and it really just ended up being a bit of a hindrance to try and make value out of it. There was a couple times where I went through a window and it was nice to have it blocked and know that it wasn't an option for the survivors and they were kind of dead zoned. And there's some loops where it can be really useful because you know some windows are really strong and you can block it before they get there, like some kind of god loops that you can block, but really not that useful and not as impactful as you'd expect. I wouldn't really recommend it. I wouldn't really suggest using it like that, but it is there as an option. The last part of this add-on, blocking the exit gates. So the exit gates are blocked if the survivor is being chased by a guard. As soon as they get detected, the exit gates are blocked like Blood Warden. Now this is really interesting, and this actually gets you kills that you really don't deserve sometimes. It's a little bit of cheeky kills that the survivors are not expecting, and some of them don't know about this add-on. So it can get you some cheeky kills at the end of the game, which obviously is the objective nowadays. So it's actually pretty strong in that right. The one problem with it is that if you are playing against experienced survivors, they do know that this add-on exists, and once they see you block windows, they'll know that you have the other side of this add-on, which is obviously by design. It is a giveaway. It is a like big red warning sign. Hey, he's got this add-on. Watch out for the end game. He could easily block you on the end game gates. and kill you with that. So it's basically just a big warning sign for the survivors that you have this add-on. So you could potentially not block any windows, specifically to not let survivors know, but it is still pretty useful, and you can still catch some people out because not too many people are extra familiar with every Knight add-on, right? Especially if you're not high MMR. If you're lower MMR, trust me, this will catch a lot of people out. It's pretty funny when it does, it's pretty satisfying, and it punishes those people that do not want to leave the exit gates. And those people, as we all know, are a little bit annoying. So it is satisfying to fuck them over in that way. So for me, this add-on is going to be A tier. I would say it's bottom A tier because other than the cheeky kills, I don't really think it has that much going for it. But it is still quite fun and can get you some like kills by itself that you might not deserve. But it is an iridescent at the end of the day, which does make it harder to use. But all in all, I think it deserves its place in the A tier. I am going to do a little bit of moving around here, just moving a couple things here and there, and we will talk about them as I do them. Firstly, I'm gonna move the pillaged mead over the chainmail because I really do feel like the chainmail is hard to use. Like I explained, you really don't get the value out of it that I kind of talked about. It's hard to get that value. You kind of end up playing very inefficiently to try and get the value, whereas the pillaged mead is always going to give you that 15% faster kicks, which, like I explained, can give you a little bit of value here and there, which is kind of nice. So a little bit of stuff with that for sure. All right, and I'm going to move this Knight's contract up and move the mask down. The reason for this being that even when the mask does work, just disabling people's windows isn't really useful as I've rethought it. It's got a little bit of usability, and the blindness will affect people, and all that you have to do is hit them with the guard, but it's still just blindness at the end of the day, which really doesn't do anything, let's be honest. Most good survivors don't even rely on aura reading perks at all. They usually just know where their teammates are generally anyways, so yeah, pretty trash add-on there, especially when the Knight is so add-on starved. So we're going to move that down. At least the broken hilt, I kept it up in D tier because at least it slows down survivors healing a little bit throughout the match. You don't have to do anything specific with it. You don't have to play any specific way. It just will buy you a little bit of time, right, at the end of the day. So there's a little bit of value with that add-on, but in general, the little bit of time it buys you is really not that much. And I put this add-on up because the momentum that it does buy you when you use the Carnifex, break a pallet, and get the down can be very impactful when it does work. But you have to keep track of when you're going to get the guard that actually has the exposed. Past the first one, it's going to be really hard to keep track of a lot of the time, and it really doesn't give you that much value. So I still would say that this add-on is trash, but the insta-down potential is there, and maybe while you're camping a hook, it could be quite useful as well on a survivor. Somebody goes for a hook trade, spawn the guard, it can be the jailer or the assassin, and then you can get the insta-down on them because they're obviously stuck in an animation. A little bit of value there as well, so maybe put that up a little bit. Honestly, if you're hook camping, it actually might be better than the flint and steel, just because you can use the assassin, the jailer that way, and then when you do get the Carnifex, you can break the pallet and get the insta down. There's a little bit of potential there, but I do still think this add-on is quite garbage. But maybe with camping, it actually turns this add-on into something kind of decent now that I think about it. That's not really my playstyle, but I did not really consider that. If you do keep track of which guards can do that, then you can camp hooks, maybe guarantee second stages and stuff like that. Could be kind of nice, actually. Obviously, there's the anti-camp stuff, which kind of makes this a bit harder. But I actually might move this add-on up to here now that I think about the camping potential of it. I think the camping potential actually makes this add-on a little bit better. Actually, quite a lot better. Would I say it's better than the lightweight greaves? Probably not, but I would say maybe it's better than the pillaged mead just for the camping potential, because you can know when you have that insta down and you'll catch people off guard because of it, and you can probably guarantee second stages, which is actually quite powerful now that I think about it. I never really thought to use the add-on that way, but now that I'm thinking about it, that actually ends up being quite fucking strong. So I think this might be the final list here, actually. I think this might be the final list. The only one I'm questioning a mark on is the Ironworker's Tongs, but that's because I'm not 100% on the usability of it. So I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's going to be the final list. So I think that's going to be about it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I know it was a bit of a long one, but I did want to talk about the Knight and all his add-ons. I do think that this kind of shows how bad Knight's add-on situation is. I do think that those two at the top are kind of necessary. I do think they're kind of needed. And I do think they're kind of needed to make his power feel a bit fluid and competent. So his add-on choices are pretty bad. I'm curious to see what they'll be like after the rework, and I think it'll be interesting for people to be able to look back on this video and see a piece of DBD history in terms of how good his add-on situation really was, which ones were good, which ones are usable, why they were usable, and you can kind of see what it's like in the rework and compare. You know what I mean? Have they done better? Have they made more add-ons viable? Have they, pushed them all together a little bit more and made some of them more useful and some of them less mandatory? So you feel like you have more options. You feel like you can, mess around, fuck around with some different combos and have some different play styles. I do think that Knight has some interesting add-ons in theory, but a lot of the time it just ends up not being worth using them because either they're just not impactful enough, they're a little bit too quirky or dependent on your ability hitting survivors, which the guards don't really do, let's be honest, or they're just like too situational. It's so much work to activate their abilities, and then their abilities don't really do anything, the add-ons abilities. And you're so add-on starved that you don't really have many options to mix it up. So I think that honestly his add-ons are some of the most annoying and frustrating. Honestly, you don't really have many good options, and when you do try and kind of mess around, you honestly feel really disappointed that you don't have Map of the Realm or Dried Horse Meat or Call to Arms. It just feels really clunky when you don't have a combination of those three add-ons, which is a bit of a shame. I usually, when I use the Healing Poultice or the company banner, I can kind of, in my mind, I can warrant it. You know what I mean? I can be like, oh, I'm not using Map of the Realm, not using Dried Horse Meat, but I've got this Poultice, which is kind of useful. It gives me some, detection, lets me hunt people down a little bit. I'm using the company banner, so at the end of the game, I can block those exit gates. It's kind of fun. It can get me some kills. Those ones, I can justify dropping the Horse Meat or dropping the map or dropping Call to Arms. But anything in B tier and below, I just feel disgusted for not using like these three add-ons here, the Map of the Realm, the Horse Meat, and the Call to Arms. Just feels like if you're not using those three, your ability is very hindered. So it's a little bit disappointing, the state of his add-ons. Hopefully they're better after the rework. Yeah, that is, I think, gonna be it. Hopefully this video was fun. Hopefully it was interesting to hear about, especially since it is now kind of a piece of history long lost to the DVD realms, as is with a live service game. But it was fun to make and hopefully fun to watch. And yeah, that is going to be it. Thank you guys very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future videos I post. You can also check out my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/gamertie108, where I stream every day starting at roughly 4 a.m. EST.